for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International for Monday, the 27th of October 2025. And we are on to program 1476 of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, of course, in addition to 101.1 FM radio, you can also get us at our website, rcistlucia.com, and we are streaming live on our Facebook feed. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. Please be sure to like and share that as well with your friends and family. And of course, don't forget, you can call in to tell us what's on your plate today. And it might be some découché Journée Creole food or whatever it might be, but you can call in to 452-3046. Again, 452-3046, as well as our WhatsApp number. That is 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. Well, we want to send out some birthday greetings for today to Mr. Miss Leander Whittington. Happy birthday to you. And also to Mrs. Winifred Cauldron. Happy birthday to you. And we do hope that you're having a fantastic birthday celebration. Well, a bit of a look back in time. And in the year 312, on this day, October the 27th, the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great was said to have received his famous vision of the cross. And of course, he went on eventually to establishing Christianity as the official religion of the Roman Empire. In the year 1795, on this day, Pinckney's Treaty, or the Treaty of San Lorenzo, was signed by Spain and the United States, establishing the southern boundary of the United States and giving Americans the right to navigate the Mississippi River. 1962, on this day, was known as Black Saturday. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, an American spy plane was shot down over Cuba, and the Navy dropped warning depth charges on Soviet submarines. 1982, on this day, China announced its population had exceeded 1 billion people. And in 1986, on this day, the British government deregulated financial markets in a big bang, enhancing London's status as a financial capital and increasing income inequality. We now move on to our dish of the day.
Every bed in our hospitals tells a story of someone's mother, someone's brother, someone's friend. And when that story of care is complete, it's time for the next chapter, home. But too often, discharged patients are left waiting hours, days, weeks, sometimes months, not because they want to stay, but because no one comes. We understand life gets busy, but every extra day they wait means another patient, perhaps in pain, perhaps in crisis, can't get the bed they desperately need. So when the call comes that your loved one is ready, please be ready too. Pick them up, bring them back to the comfort of family, where healing truly continues. Because caring doesn't end at discharge, it continues with you. A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to this lunchroom program for today, this Monday. And of course, it is the Monday after Journée Creole. And we do hope that everybody had a pretty enjoyable time out and about. It is certainly one of the very extensive festivities around St. Lucia. It's not concentrated in any one place anymore. And certainly lots of people look forward to this festivity. And of course, we do hope that in the main, everybody had a good time, whether they were in St. Lucia or not. Lots of people in the diaspora as well. take it as an opportunity to come together and to, of course, celebrate our Creole heritage, our Creoleness, Creolite, whatever you want to call it. And of course, we do hope that it was very well spent in the main for everyone. Now, also want to mention, unfortunately, of course, although we had seen certainly some good progress in terms of road etiquette, and at least in terms of the results that we were seeing coming out of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force for the first 3 quarters of the year 2025. Unfortunately, over the past couple of days, we've seen quite a number of accidents where they've involved injuries, and unfortunately, we saw a very untimely accident at somewhere in the vicinity of the Kiwanora International Airport, one of those perimeter roads along the airport, and in Viewfort, and unfortunately, the loss of a very young life, just 5 years old, a kindergarten student from Grace, from at least the attending the Grace combined school. And it is never a nice thought that we can see having to deal with sudden and tragic accidents. And of course, it's even worse when it is involving such a very, very young life. And we really want to extend our condolences to the family of this 5-year-old, who certainly grieving terribly at this time the loss of life. And we're seeing, of course, people quite often, unfortunately, driving very recklessly, always wanting to get ahead. And we really have to, sometimes, calm ourselves and realize that, look, we really aren't that far away from anything in a small island like St. Lucia. Just recently, I was hosting some persons from Guyana, and they were asking, well, how long does it take to drive around the island of St. Lucia? And I thought about it, and I said, well, maybe from Castries to Viewfort return is, even when you go down the west coast, come back up on the east coast, you really are not talking more than 3 hours of driving if you do it non-stop. And the reality is that nowhere is really that far in our country, and we certainly do need to exercise due care and due patience on the road. We sometimes believe, that once a road is paved, it's some sort of an excuse now to be able to drive as fast as we can, and we're seeing quite a lot of chances being taken by individuals on our roads, and there's some drivers certainly who need to exercise a lot of due caution, perhaps more than others. One, of course, motorcycle drivers, because just the mere nature of driving a motorcycle is innately dangerous on the roads. It is just the reality of it, even when you take the best care of putting on your helmets and other safety equipment, but you are at a greater risk, and so therefore you need to exercise greater care and caution. Unfortunately, we don't see that from a number of motorcyclists who believe that driving a motorcycle is now an excuse to believe that you're somehow on some sort of a rally course, or you're on a motocross track, and you could be doing stunts on the asphalt. It is certainly a recipe for disaster. Yes, you may do it once and do it twice and do it 3 times or whatever, and you think you're getting really good at it, and unfortunately it is a matter of odds, and you've got to be extra careful and to exercise care. And I know, of course, motorsports, especially for young men, it is where it is at. The thrill, the adrenaline rush that you get, but it's still not certainly about you alone, especially when you are on a public road. And it's one thing to be doing this on a track, and that's a whole other conversation about having a decent track for auto sports, an area for auto sports. I think we certainly need one in the country. We've seen many other islands, they've dedicated space towards that, albeit sometimes through private investment. In Barbados, you've got Bushy Park. In Trinidad, you have Waller Field. In Antigua, they've got a lot of a very nice setup up in, I think, in Crabs or thereabouts. And so you see that, yes, there's a need for it. We all agree upon it, but the reality is that that's still not an excuse to turn the public thoroughfares into your course, your racetrack. And so we've got to be very, very cautious about it. And the other, of course, on the other side of the spectrum, the other set of drivers that who certainly do need to be very cautious are truck drivers and drivers of very heavy goods vehicles and container trucks, because, yes, you are perhaps very theoretically pretty safe in these very large vehicles, but that at the same time, when you decide to speed, it becomes exceedingly difficult to be able to control such large vehicles on roads that are winding, on roads that have very narrow lane widths, on roads that have lots of on grades, and of course sometimes you may not be able to bring the vehicle to stop at the rate we're doing. And of course we're in a tropical island with lots of rain, and that sometimes is a factor. The weather is sometimes a factor. So it really means that you have to exercise even more due care in terms of ensuring that you're being cautious on the road. And I know it's a very difficult time for a number of truck operators. It's a difficult time for all persons on the roads because of congestion, and you definitely want to be able to get to where you're going, and then you end up sometimes in an area where you've got to slow down, and it takes a while to get going again. But we still do need to be careful. And even when, of course, there is no congestion, that's when we sometimes believe that is an opening now to drive as fast as we can. And let's remember that in the main, on major roads, the speed limit, I believe, is 40 miles per hour. In some areas, 30 miles per hour. In some areas, even less. And certainly in the city and built-up areas, 15 miles per hour. So we have to be considerate of these factors, and speed kills. That is the reality. And quite often, it's a major difference. Going just 10 miles per hour faster can be a major difference in terms of the momentum that your vehicle ends up having. So do I wish that we can have motorways one day in St. Lucia? Maybe, yes. That would be a great wish to have, perhaps. That we might be able to get from Castries to Grosley in maybe 10 minutes, and get from Castries to Viewfort in maybe 30 minutes. That would be a wonderful thing, somewhere in the future. But the reality is we're not at that point yet, and we have to be cautious and real about our island and the limitations that exist in respect of our roadways. And so therefore, the need to exercise caution, the onus is on all of us. And I think there have been calls, and I think rightful calls indeed, for the authorities to begin considering action in terms of a system in which drivers who are found speeding, or drivers who are found engaging in reckless activity, that they in fact are getting some penalties, to the extent, of course, that they could potentially lose their licenses. We sometimes have situations where people end up actually leading to the loss of life of individuals, and they still end up back on the road, even after potentially, being the cause to some degree or being involved in accidents, and that is unfortunate indeed. And so, in as much as we are thankful that we've seen an overall trend towards a reduction in serious accidents, according to the Royal St. Lucia Police Force's latest data, we certainly need to be able to ensure that 50% reduction is something that we can see continuing through to the end of the year, and we wouldn't lose out on that type of success as a country because of festivities and individuals engaging in reckless driving. I don't even know if it has anything to do with even driving under the influence of alcohol again, because many of these accidents are actually occurring in broad daylight. And so really, we do need to be a little bit more cautious on the roads. And as I said, the appeals to maybe consider creating systems of demerits where individuals lose points. You're not just getting a ticket, but actually potentially being marked down and potentially losing your driver's license is perhaps something that could be considered. And I think that certainly is a great fear for many persons if they would be told that, look, hey, if you're going to be engaging in speeding and you're caught maybe 3 times or whatever the case may be, you end up losing your license. I think persons would certainly want to be a lot more cautious on the roads. Of course, it is also another time of where people are so much on the move, and technology is on the move with people as well. And so the idea, of course, of texting and driving, it's always a very dangerous undertaking. And we do know that there's a great temptation to do just that. So we do have to be very, very mindful about that aspect as well, and being focused on the roads, especially, of course, when we are the driver of that vehicle. We've got to be very, very cautious indeed. So again, our commiserations to the family of this young boy who's certainly gone way, 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 way too soon. And I think it's a good wake-up call for all of us at this time with respect to that situation. Also, of course, we are monitoring what is going on first in the weather space, and though not directly impacting us, the very, very real threat of what is heading towards the island of Jamaica is very concerning. And of course, we speak to that of Hurricane Melissa. And the looks of things, just to very quickly indicate the most recent release coming out of the Met Service in Jamaica. Hurricane warning remains in effect for Jamaica. Powerful Hurricane Melissa expected to turn towards the island. A hurricane warning remains in effect for Jamaica as powerful Hurricane Melissa continues westward over the Caribbean Sea, south of the island, and is expected to turn northward. At 10 a.m., the center of Hurricane Melissa was located latitude 16.4 degrees north, longitude 78.2 degrees west. This is 230 kilometers, 145 miles southwest of Kingston, or 104 miles south of Bluefields in Westmoreland, Jamaica. Melissa is moving toward the west near 6 kilometers per hour, or 3 miles per hour. A slow turn toward the northwest and north is expected today and tonight, followed by a further turn to the northeast at a faster forward speed on Tuesday. On the forecast track, the core of Melissa is expected to start moving over Jamaica tonight and early Tuesday. Maximum sustained winds are near 270 kilometers per hour or 165 miles per hour with higher gusts. Melissa is a Category 5 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. Some additional strengthening is forecast today, with some fluctuations in intensity likely before Melissa makes landfall on southwestern Jamaica as an extremely powerful major hurricane on Tuesday. Hurricane force winds extend upward of 45 kilometers or 30 miles from the center of tropical storm force winds, extending 315 kilometers or 195 miles. Data from Jamaica's Doppler radar show that outer bands of Hurricane Melissa have been moving over mainly southern and eastern sections of Jamaica since Sunday evening and producing periods of light to moderate rainfall. Hurricane Melissa is expected to produce rainfall amounts reaching 15 to 30 inches over parts of Jamaica in the next couple of days, especially over central and eastern parishes, with higher amounts over hilly terrain. Catastrophic flash floods and landslides are likely. Tropical storm conditions are expected to spread over Jamaica today, and hurricane conditions are expected to begin tonight or early Tuesday. Life-threatening storm surge, accompanied by large and destructive waves, is likely along the south coast of Jamaica tonight and on Tuesday, peaking at 9 to 13 feet above ground level near and to the east of where the center of Melissa makes landfall. Small craft operators, including fishers on the Keys and Banks, are strongly advised to remain in safe harbor until all warning messages have been lifted and wind and sea conditions have returned to normal. The Met Service continues to closely monitor the progress of Hurricane Melissa, and all interests are encouraged to pay special attention to further releases. And that, of course, coming from the Met Service of Jamaica. Hurricane warning means that there are the following dangerous effects of a hurricane are expected to affect Jamaica within 36 hours or less. Dangerously high water, or a combination of dangerously high water and exceptionally high waves, even though winds expected may be less than hurricane force, and average winds of 74 miles per hour or higher. That's a basic for a hurricane warning. And of course, we can well appreciate that we are speaking of a Category 5 hurricane, effectively going to be making a landfall on the island of Jamaica. And I think this would certainly be the most powerful hurricane to make landfall on the island. I think it's being compared to Hurricane Gilbert, which was a Category 4 hurricane. And this is certainly going to be potentially very, very devastating for the island of Jamaica. Yes, it's a relatively large island that we're speaking of, and we're still not exactly sure as to what point it's going to come across, but certainly when you speak of like Kingston, for example, and you speak of the issues of flooding that already impacts a place like Kingston, right along the coast as well, and the potential for storm damage. The Norman Manley International Airport is right on the Palisados and Port Royal, and lots of impacts are possible. The Port of Kingston is the busiest port in the Caribbean, certainly in the English-speaking Caribbean. I think overall in the Caribbean, it is a major transshipment port, and certainly a lot of our trade, our container cargo, usually transits through the Port of Kingston at some point. And so with, of course, this type of system coming, with the strength of winds that we're talking about, that's potential for even containers to be thrown off, and so we have to wait to see how that actually impacts that type of infrastructure, the airport there, of course, as well as the cargo terminal, and of course the impact of such strong winds is very, very telling, and we are certainly going to be hoping for the best. But and of course there's been a lot of preparation being made for this hurricane. In some sense, people have had some time to prepare because of the fact it's been a pretty slow-moving system. But because it's so slow-moving, it is therefore going to cause a tremendous amount of hardship and havoc over an extended period, to the extent that we're talking about nearly 3 feet of rainfall in Jamaica in some parts. And you can just well imagine, I mean, with what we saw with Thomas, with just 10 to 12 inches of rainfall, and we're effectively talking 3 times that amount. And so in the many very fast flowing flash flood type rivers that you have in Jamaica, and the Alice, for example, that's very worrying. That's certainly very, very worrying for a lot of people who are in low-lying areas, as well as persons who are living on slopes. It certainly is going to be a very, very difficult situation. Of course, Jamaica is the largest island in the English-speaking Caribbean, and it is also home to a number of major institutions. Of course, the students over at UWI Mona, and I think I did note that the Minister for Education, Honorable Sean Edward, did send out a message this morning asking persons to spare thought for the students who are over there. Of course, they've had to already postpone the graduation exercises that would have been coming up very soon over there, and of course a lot of other potential impacts for business and commerce is likely. So we do have to certainly look towards this situation very, very closely in terms of how it can impact the broader Caribbean, because Jamaica is so very much important in terms of the integrated nature of our economies. Of course, they are also highly tourism dependent, and although a lot of the tourism plant is on the north side of the island, on the north coast, and on the northwest coast, Montego Bay, across to Negril, but with the kind of storm that we're seeing approaching, this type of hurricane, it is only anybody's guess to see what kind of impact it's also going to be having on the tourism infrastructure of Jamaica as well. And so I think we definitely have to be prepared to be able to do what we can. Of course, many people would have family over there, and so we have to be thinking about them as well at this time. That's our dish of the day. And when we come back, we're going to take in our own weather report coming out of the St. Lucia Met Service.
This has been The Daily Dish.
Every bed in our hospitals tells a story of someone's mother, someone's brother, someone's friend. And when that story of care is complete, it's time for the next chapter, home. But too often, discharged patients are left waiting hours, days, weeks, sometimes months, not because they want to stay, but because no one comes. We understand life gets busy, but every extra day they wait means another patient, perhaps in pain, perhaps in crisis, can't get the bed they desperately need. So when the call comes that your loved one is ready, please be ready too. Pick them up, bring them back to the comfort of family, where healing truly continues. Because caring doesn't end at discharge, it continues with you. A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs.
It's now time for our weather report brought to you by Island Style.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home.
Really?
Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with the style stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up.
What are you looking for?
Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle.
Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my #1 store for everything tile. And with their new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous styles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for.
That sounds perfect.
I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation.
I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and View Fort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And the forecast for St. Lucia valid for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from between the east and east-southeast near 20 miles per hour or 31 kilometers per hour. Weather fair to partly cloudy skies with a few isolated thunderstorms. Forecast for the Lesser Antilles. Partly cloudy to cloudy skies with scattered showers and a chance of isolated thunderstorms over the southern Windward Islands and areas further south. Elsewhere, fair to occasionally cloudy skies with a few scattered showers. The tropical weather outlook. Moderate easterly winds will continue across the Lesser Antilles during the next few days. An approaching tropical wave will begin to affect the southern portion of the Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. The wave is moving westward near 9 miles per hour or 15 kilometers per hour. And that is your weather report brought to you by Island Style.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home.
Really?
Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with the style stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up.
What are you looking for?
Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle.
Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my #1 store for everything tile. And with their new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous styles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for.
That sounds perfect.
I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation.
I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and View Fort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
And welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Now, one individual was actually commenting on Facebook sometime over the weekend that they were somewhat hopeful that the presence of the American military might be able to support the whatever humanitarian assistance would be needed in the lead up and aftermath of Hurricane Melissa, which is expected to hit Jamaica later on tonight and potentially go on to impact southern Cuba as well as the south of the Bahamas and possibly also the Turks and Caicos Islands. So well, I'm not sure if that is in fact the express intent and whether that may even come to be, but certainly perhaps wishful thinking in that regard. But certainly I don't think we've seen this extent of a military presence in the United States, within the Caribbean basin for any time that we've ever been alive for, certainly not. And it is perhaps looking like quite possibly the beginnings of an attempt at regime change by the United States of America to Venezuela. It is certainly what is believed to be the intent, according to Venezuelan authorities, that the United States is effectively looking to change the regime that is currently currently in Venezuela. Of course, it has also caused for a bit of strained relations, to say the least, between two countries that have shared a common part of the Caribbean Sea, that of the Gulf of Paria, Trinidad being on the eastern side of the Gulf of Paria, and Venezuela being La Guira on the western side. And in fact, quite recently, there's been what has been termed a joint operation between Trinidad and Tobago and the United States of America. And in fact, a U.S. warship, I believe the USS Garvey, in the waters docking in Trinidad. And that has certainly caused for concern by the Venezuelan authorities. And there's been a release coming out of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. And just to quickly share that with our listeners, it says, Venezuela denounces military provocation by Trinidad and Tobago in coordination with the CIA to provoke a war in the Caribbean. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela denounces before the international community the dangerous carrying out of, quote, military exercises by the government of Trinidad and Tobago between the 26th and 30th of this month under the coordination, financing, and control of the United States Southern Command, an action that constitutes a hostile provocation against Venezuela and a serious threat to the peace of the Caribbean. Venezuela reports that it has captured a mercenary group with direct information from the U.S. intelligence agency, CIA, being able to determine that a false flag attack is underway from waters bordering Trinidad and Tobago or from Trinidadian or Venezuelan territory itself, which will generate a full military confrontation against our country. This planned action perfectly evokes the provocations of the battleship Maine and the Gulf of Tonkin, which gave rise to the war against Spain to seize Cuba in 1898, and which allowed the U.S. Congress to authorize involvement in an external war against Vietnam in 1964, respectively, from which they emerged defeated by the Vietnamese people after facing incalculable destruction and regrettable human losses. The government of Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar has renounced the sovereignty of Trinidad and Tobago to act as a military colony subordinate to U.S. hegemonic interests, turning its territory into a U.S. aircraft carrier for the war throughout the Caribbean against Venezuela, against Colombia, and against all of South America. By folding to Washington's militaristic agenda, Persad-Bissessar not only intends to attack Venezuela, a country that has always maintained a policy of energy cooperation, mutual respect, and Caribbean integration, and break our historic bonds of brotherhood. He also violates the United Nations Charter, the proclamation of Latin America and the Caribbean as a zone of peace, approved by CELAC, and the principles of CARICOM, which protect all the peoples of the Caribbean. These are not defensive exercises. This is a colonial operation of military aggression that seeks to turn the Caribbean into a space for lethal violence and U.S. imperial domination. This policy of surrender and betrayal of the constitutional principles of Trinidad and Tobago has ended up striking the people themselves. Innocent fishermen have been victims of extrajudicial executions in the Caribbean Sea, revealing the repressive and criminal nature, criminal nature of the current government, which fires on its own people under the call, kill them all, and celebrates that Trinidadians are summarily executed while opening the doors to murderous foreign troops. Venezuela does not accept threats from any vassal government of the U.S. We are not intimidated by military exercises or war cries. The Bolivarian National Armed Forces will remain alert and mobilized in perfect popular military police union in the face of this very serious provocation. Our republic, heir to Bolivar and Chavez, will always defend its sovereignty, its territorial integrity, and its right to live in peace against foreign enemies and its vassals. And that, I said, was a release coming from the government of Venezuela. Very, very strong words, certainly, on this entire matter of a event or cooperation between Trinidad and Tobago and the United States of America. There was a response which came out yesterday from the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and that too reads as follows: Statement by the Government of Trinidad and Tobago on security cooperation activities between the Government of Trinidad and Tobago and the Government of the United States of America. The Government of Trinidad and Tobago has taken note of the statement issued by the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela earlier this afternoon in relation to the visit of the USS Gravely, DDG 107, to Trinidad and Tobago during the period October 26th to 30th. The government of Trinidad and Tobago and the government of the United States of America have been clear about the specific purpose of this visit, as highlighted in official statements from the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs on 23rd October 2025. The Embassy of the United States of America in Port of Spain on the 24th of October 2024. And the more recent update provided by the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs earlier this afternoon during a news conference held at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and CARICOM Affairs. The visit of the USS Gravely aims to bolster the fight against transnational crime and build resilience through training, humanitarian activities, and security cooperation. It will also strengthen the long-standing partnership between both countries, which has provided enhanced medical care and disaster preparedness, improved lives, and strengthened communities in Trinidad and Tobago. The government of Trinidad and Tobago has repeatedly made it clear that it values this country's relationship with the people of Venezuela, given our shared history and close fraternal relations. The government of Trinidad and Tobago also once more reiterates its commitment to the people of the Caribbean for the creation of a safer, stronger, and more prosperous region. That message coming yesterday from the Trinidad and Tobago authorities, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs there, of course, speaking very generally, of course, to security cooperation, humanitarian activities, and training, and a fight against transnational crime. Of course, all those who have pretty much commented on this military build-up by the United States of America in the Caribbean have indicated that it is certainly unprecedented, that you would be witnessing this extent of military presence for the purpose of drug interdiction. In fact, the other point that has been made is that when it comes to the flow of drugs to the United States of America, the Pacific region is actually far more important if one were to look to curb that flow, because most of the drugs actually coming from South America, from Ecuador, Colombia, and elsewhere, they are primarily heading along the Pacific coast, heading up towards Mexico, heading towards the Pacific states of the United States, as well as, of course, once getting into Mexico, into regions like Texas and elsewhere. And so the idea that this effort is really geared towards drug interdiction does not really fit into the overall efforts. If in fact the United States was truly keen on efforts at drug interdiction, one would have thought that there would have been some similarity in terms of the response, at the very least, in terms of the Pacific coast, the Pacific Ocean, as well as the Caribbean. In fact, most drugs passing through the Caribbean have been more transit towards Europe. And of course, this is a part of our challenge right here in St. Lucia, as has been mentioned many times, because of our proximity to Martinique, for example, and the issues with respect to drug trafficking through this island. So again, it does not quite marry. And in addition to that, we are speaking of the removal of a carrier group. And again, just to explain that perhaps a little bit, I think the United States has about 11 aircraft carriers, and some will be, docked at base at any one time, and some would be deployed. And of course, the deployment would vary depending on where you've got critical issues. Of course, certainly in the Pacific, in the Pacific region. And when I say Pacific, I'm speaking about the Western Pacific. Well, would that be West? Yes, but the region around Asia, I should say, that Asia Pacific region. Obviously, because of the amount of trade and concerns with respect to allies such as Taiwan and the Philippines, you do have a presence in that region, certainly. And generally, of course, in the Mediterranean area, you would have a presence there because of the issues of Israel and concerns in that region. And of course, as well in the Gulf region, concerns would dictate that you would probably have to, more strength in those areas. These are well-known areas where deployment is likely. The Caribbean as a place for deployment of such to such an extent has certainly not been seen ever, and so that is really where the big question is. The decision to actually move an aircraft carrier group into the Caribbean. Aircraft carriers, of course, what they effectively allow is for the ability for the U.S. military to be able to project its attack strength through the use of fighter jets, and those fighter jets, of course, have to be able to refuel, and the aircraft carrier effectively allows for a floating air base, if you like. And so therefore it allows for the possibility of airstrikes. And so if we are now seeing an aircraft carrier into our waters, and also being supported by submarines, and of course invariably these submarines are used for, again, strikes, missile strikes. It is very much suggestive that it is the potential purpose, maybe may be saber rattling, but the decision to actually move an entire aircraft carrier group, which is, of course, the aircraft carrier itself, and additional ships, destroyers, and support ships, that certainly is speaking to a certain degree of interest beyond that of drug interdiction. The U.S., of course, has interests in Puerto Rico, as well as in the United States Virgin Islands. And of course, they have also been part of this effort at play at the moment, as we have been witnessing. And of course, the big question is the intent regime change? Is the intent, as we suggested, saber rattling, to the extent that the United States would want, in fact, to maybe force some sort of negotiation with the Venezuelan authorities? We saw what happened in the case of Ukraine. Ukraine, of course, at war with Russia. And very, very interesting enough, although generally speaking, Ukraine has seen the United States as an ally, likewise with respect to that of Europe and these NATO countries. We saw a very strange approach in dealing with Ukraine, to the point that they, of course, had to come to the table and negotiate support from the United States of America, which involved getting mineral rights, the rights to be able to mine particular minerals that have, of course, economic value. And so the question is, of course, and we do know the tremendous wealth with respect to Venezuela in terms of oil and gas, as well as other minerals in the Orinoco Basin and elsewhere in Venezuela. And the big question is there to be some sort of that type of negotiation, or is it that the United States, in fact, has decided that they are simply going to be taking this opportunity at this point to effect a change in the regime, not through the democratic process, not through negotiation, but in fact through the use of force? It was the attempt, the very pretty similar attempt that was being taken by Vladimir Putin with respect to Ukraine. And of course, their original plan was effectively to see how they would have been able to get rid of the Zelensky administration in Kyiv. That was not successful. And so we have seen an ongoing war of land grabs and trying to create a land bridge for Crimea and other strategic interests by Russia in Ukraine, with this war still ongoing. And of course, it has perhaps not, well, it certainly has not resulted in a ceasefire, according to Mr. Trump, who claimed that, of course, he was going to come in and the war would be all done in 3 days. And so in the case of Venezuela right about now, with this amount of firepower, this amount of military assets in the Caribbean Sea, it is certainly going to be very, very interesting over the next couple of days and weeks to be observing how this, of course, can all pan out. The counterbalance, of course, within all that is occurring right now in respect of Venezuela is whether, in fact, this may very well become a proxy war. And if, in fact, there is intervention by the likes of Russia as well as China. They, of course, have key interests in Venezuela, and they would be very interested to see how to effectively prevent Venezuela from becoming a client state of the United States of America. And so this is really a very interesting interplay at this point geopolitically. And we certainly have to be very mindful of the potential impacts that may arise in this region. Of course, if in fact there is a major war afoot. It certainly can have implications, perhaps in the first instance, certainly for nearby territories, the likes of the ABC Islands, for example, the Dutch islands of Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. But we never know in terms of what would be the potential fallout, even for other parts of the Caribbean within this context. Of course, we have heard the overtures with respect to Grenada and the use of Grenada for potentially being used for radar and other types of surveillance equipment being sighted there. We do know, of course, the United States still does have interest in some islands. I think Antigua and Barbuda, for example, has a base and pretty much near the international airport, a naval base there. So as to how that pans out, we will certainly be monitoring this ongoing situation, but enough to say that certainly it is a very real situation that we are seeing rolling out right before our eyes within the Caribbean. That's our program for today. And of course, we do hope that you can join us for tomorrow's program. It's going to be a little bit of a spin. We've actually got a special panel coming in, and they'll be speaking about biodiversity. So I won't be in tomorrow. I don't think so. So hopefully you'll be able to enjoy that. Of course, on Wednesday, we will be taking in our Republic Corner and possibly another interview on Wednesday afternoon, but we confirm that on the day. Hope you can enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good one. I'm your host, Calix Shaw Jr., saying goodbye.